Hey guys, it's MindGames and welcome back to another League of Legends video. Today I just want to talk about some of the new items that were released to PvE, or all the new items. I filmed a video explaining every single item, but it was like an hour long. I don't think any of you guys want to watch an hour-long video, so I'm just gonna go through the basics of the items and like what they changed, what they kept. So I'm just gonna go through it like really really quickly actually, because that's basically what you guys want to see. So let's start with the basic and starter items. All these items, I think you can guess what these items are. Like BS Sword, Needlessly Large Rod. One thing they changed, Crit Cloak is now 600 and it provides 15 crit instead of being 820 crit. Fairy Charm, they combined 2 Fairy Charms into 1, so now it's 2 times more expensive. It's double the stats just to save on inventory space, because you need to buy a lot if you're support. Dorn's Shield didn't change, Call didn't change. Dorn's Blade, I don't really know what they're trying to do with Dorn's Blade, but it looks like they're trying to make it not as good late game. Instead of giving you lifesteal, it gives you like a weird passive that gives you lifesteal, but it caps like the lifesteal that you get from it. So some ADCs require, they buy Bork and they have Dorn's Blade, which just gives them 15%, and it's no longer the case. If you buy Bork and Dorn's Blade, you're getting basically 12%. Anyways, tier is a starter item now. It's 450 less expensive than the regular tier, so champions like Ryze and Cassiopeia, they don't need to back anymore. And TP back to lane, they don't even need to run TP anymore. And even champions like Ezreal, who want to back and TP to lane just to get their tier, they don't need to do that anymore, because now it's a starter item. Like the other starter items, it gives you extra 5 attack damage on hit for minions to help you CS. It doesn't give you refund in mana anymore. So it gives you overall less mana, but it allows you to stack tier really early on. As soon as you start the game, you can start stacking tier. Also, another thing to know about it is that you can only stack the tier if you're hitting something with it, and it's doubled on champions. So you can't just, be Ezreal walking to lane, queuing on the way. It doesn't work like that. You have to be hitting something. Dorn's Ring is mostly unchanged. Instead, it doesn't give you mana. It gives you mana regen, but not as regen. It gives you mana on kill, and if you don't have mana, it gives you HP instead. So you don't need to be a mana champion to use Dorn Ring anymore. You can be like Mordekaiser, for example. You get the HP, you get the AP, and you get the HP on minion kill instead of mana on minion kill, which is really good for the item. All the support items, they look like they have been unchanged, except they give you a little bit more gold when you hit someone. For example, Spelthies no longer gives you 10 gold, it gives you 20 gold for hitting someone. These 2 weird jungle items, they're both Talisman. I think they removed Hunter's Machete, and instead, after you smite 5 times, you get Chilling Smite, or you get the Red Smite. So depending on which one you buy is which smite that you want. And Dark Seal has been changed a little bit. It gives you 20 AP instead of 10 AP, and it gives you HP instead of mana, and it no longer gives you extra potion effects. So you can't buy this and like a refillable, and it gives you like extra potion effects, and it still has the Dark Seal effect, you stack ability power on takedowns. So onto the epic items. Aegis remain the same, except it's 400 more expensive, and it gives you 15 CDR, which is now flat CDR instead of percentage-based CDR. I can talk about that a little bit more later. Last Whisper has been unchanged. Lost Chapter now gives you 10 CDR instead of 20%, so it's a huge nerf in CDR. The rest of it is the same, still gives you mana, AP, and mana on level up. Hex Drinker is unchanged, QSS is unchanged. This item is not Catalyst anymore, it's an imposter. I think they might change what it looks like anymore, or maybe they'll keep it just to confuse players. Now it's built off of Ruby Crystal and Spell Tomb, and if you complete it, it gives you extra spell vamp. So it's 1300 for an easy spell vamp item. Next item is this weird item. I don't remember what it's called. It gives you AD and attack speed and on hit damage on minions to help you CS. It's kind of like an ADC item. Every ADC would rush this item basically as the new BF sword. I mean, if you have money for the BF sword, you could buy BF sword, but this item gives you attack damage and attack speed, helps you CS. Also, it has 3 components, double longsword and a dagger. So if you don't back with 1300, you can still buy this item. You can buy components of the item. Spectre Cowl has remained unchanged except it's 50 gold more. So you're getting exactly the same thing, it's 50 gold more. This purple item gives you 25 AP and 15 magic pen, and it builds into Void Staff, I think, or something like that. It's the new like Oblivion Orb, but it's more efficient and doesn't give you AP. Zeal is basically the same thing. It's built off of the cloak as well. It gives you 15% crit, like bit attack speed and movement speed, so it's remained unchanged. So Tiamat is now very interesting. It only builds off pickaxe instead of the weird ass build path of Rejuve Bead and longsword, and it no longer has an active. It only has a passive which allows you to wave clear, but it doesn't have an active, which kind of sucks. This item is very interesting. It gives you magic resist and ability power, and it gives you stacking magic resist based on the time of the how much time has passed. And the more magic damage you take, it speeds up that process of how much MR you get. This item is like Tiamat. As you can see, it's got the same icon, except it has no passive. It's only the active part. Unlike the other Tiamat, or the regular Tiamat, that is only the passive part. So I think this item might be a little bit stronger than the other one, and it builds into some of the stronger items of the game. Warhammer has been unchanged. Phage is now completely different. It gives you the same stats, except attacking or receiving damage actually gains you health, like kind of gains you health regen kind of thing. The passive of Phage has been moved to this item, which gives you attack damage and attack speed and movement speed on hit. So it's basically got the Phage passive, except it's attack damage and attack speed instead of attack damage and HP. Dirk has stayed the same. This is a very interesting item. It's a new support item. You can only buy this item at level 13, which is kind of crazy because it does absolutely nothing other than the fact that you can hold 3 control wards. After you place 20 wards, it upgrades and it gives you 25 ability haste, and it upgrades into something else later on. So this is a new item. It's basically, it gives you attack speed 35%, and it converts critical strike damage into attack on hit damage. So if you have 20% crit, it deals this much. If you get another 20%, it deals this much. And it builds into Rage Blade, which has crit, but Rage Blade converts that crit into on hit. So for all the items that you see that have crit, it can be converted into on hit in case you don't need it. Recurve Bow has stayed the exact same. Warden's Mail is same armor, 40 armor, except now its passive no longer reduces attack speed, it actually reduces flat incoming damage. So I don't know how that's going to interact with something like Ash. If you know, like Amumu has a passive where he reduces incoming damage by a certain amount. It does have a cap. It cannot reduce more than 60% of the damage, but it reduces flat damage based on your HP. Mystic Glass, it just gives you ability haste and mana regen, so it's kind of like a support item built into other stuff. Bammy Cinder is now 1000 gold. It does basically the exact same thing. It gives you a little bit more HP, but it no longer increases its effect if you CC someone. Glacial Shot is the same thing, 10 or 15 ability haste, I don't remember. Fiendish Codex is about the same thing. Giant's Belt has been reduced its price to 900, and the HP it gives is basically exactly the same, so now it's a 900 item. Seeker's Arm Guard is now 900, so it's cheaper, and the effects are it's been tweaked to be basically the exact same. It used to give you medium armor, medium AP, and then you would stack it more. Now it gives you high AP, low armor, and stacking armor only, instead of stacking both ability power and armor. Vamp Scepter has remained the exact same. Cloak has been is now more expensive, but it gives you like more MR, so it makes up. Wisp is the same. Chain Vest is the same, but Oblivion Orb, this is very interesting because now it's 800 and it's the Grievous Wound for AP champions. You build this, you get Grievous Wounds on all your abilities. So now mages have a really easy way to get Grievous Wounds. Bramble Vest, also 800, they just reduce the price. All Grievous Wound items are now 800, and there's one for attack damage, ability power, and tank. So that's how it works. Kindle Gem is this exact same item basically. This is a weird new item. I don't really understand it. It gives you HP and movement speed. That's it. HP and movement speed. Executioner is the same thing. Idol is the same thing. Sheen now no longer gives you mana, reduces that price from Sheen, and now it's only 700 with no stats and only a passive usability. Next autos do extra damage. Really good for champions like Garen who want it but don't want the mana. Shiv is the same, and Crystalline Bracer is the same. Now onto the legendary items. Death Cap is the exact same item. Hurricane has been changed a little bit. It gives you like AD instead of movement speed. Bloodthirster now gives you crit, and it has its stats adjusted to give you crit. This new item gives you attack damage, armor pen, ability haste, and it gives you the Rallies effect, but it's for an AD champion, so it can be good for, I don't know, Senna or other AD spellcasters in the game, like, I don't know, Lucian, anyone. IE is basically the same thing. Instead of increasing your crit damage just flat out, it now increases your crit damage for how much crit you have. So it scales better into the late game. So you have 100% crit, then it's going to give you 40% more crit damage. But it scales 8% for every 20%. Now this new item is very interesting. It gives you attack damage, crit chance, and 30 ability haste, which is an absurd amount. And on top of that, it has the Shojin effect without using your ultimate. Basically, if you're auto, your basic abilities cooldown are going to be reduced by 20% without casting an ultimate. So it's going to be a passive that's on all the time. Champions like Lucian is going to build this, and they don't even need to ult to trigger the Shojin effect. So this is going to be really powerful. Black Cleaver is a bit different. It still gives you the armor shred that it used to, except now after you get a max amount of armor shred, your autos do an extra like percentage health damage. So it's an insanely good tank killer. Not only do you shred their armor, but after you shred their armor, you do bonus max health damage. So it's going to be really good for that. Now, Ravenous Hydra doesn't have this active anymore, but it gives you CDR. And Titanic Hydra also no longer has its active. It still has like the cleave effect and everything, but it gives you more AD for how much HP you have. So it's still the tank item, Tiamat item. Gargoyle is very interesting because it has an active and a passive. The passive gives you extra armor when you're around, when you're being attacked by enemies. And the active gives you HP instead of making you tanky. So it's a little bit easier to see what you're getting. And the shield that you get, the active gives you a shield, and the shield increases based on bonus health that you have. And it goes up to, and it's 100% scaling. So if you build Warmogs with 800 HP and you activate the shield, it's gonna be 800 more shield. So it's a pretty good scaling item for HP and tanks in general. Lord Dominic's Regard is going to be your tank killer item for ADCs. It gives you armor pen, and they took back what they removed a while ago. You do bonus 20% bonus auto damage to other enemy champions that have more base health or more health than you in general. So you're gonna want to build this. It gives you armor pen, and you deal more damage to higher health targets. So Bork is very interesting. They removed the active from the Bork and instead it now triggers that active every 3 autos. So auto, auto, third auto now does the Bork effect. It like sucks the life out of you. It deals bonus damage, flat damage, and it takes your movement speed. So Wit's End now gives you 40 AD, 40 attack speed. So now it gives you AD, removes the movement speed, no one cares about that, and it gives you MR like always, and attacking people now gives you the phage effect where you get extra movement speed. Now Death Dance is a really interesting item because it's basically the same item. It no longer has magic resist, it only gives you armor, and now as you know, one of its passive is that reduces incoming damage by like 30% and have it dealt back to you over a couple seconds. Now if you kill someone while that thing is active, the damage that you would have taken is completely mitigated. It disappears. You're no longer going to die from that bleed, and instead you get healed a little bit more HP, but based on your HP. So not only if you kill someone while you're bleeding, not only do you get rid of the bleed entirely, you have a triumph effect afterwards. So it really encourages killing people to prevent yourself from dying. Sterex Gauge, basically the same item. It's built off a phage, which gives you HP when you hit things or take damage, and it still has the same effect where if you get a shield, you take within a certain amount of damage, but the shield is actually increased based on how much damage, how many stacks of rage you have. So the rage effect gives you HP, but it stacks up to 5 times, and if the more stacks you have, the bigger the shield is going to be. So it's not going to be as strong if you get bursted instantly, which you're not going to be as a tank. But if you take damage, deal damage for 5-10 seconds, and then you get that shield, it's going to be much bigger. Ma has been unchanged, and now there's a new item, which is this item is built from QSS, but it's like the tank item QSS. We know that Mercurial Scimitar is the QSS item that we have right now. It's for ADCs. You activate it, you get an extra bonus movement speed on top of cleansing. This, when you cleanse, you don't get the movement speed, but you get 40% tenacity and slow resist after cleansing. So it's for tanks who want, it gives you HP, it gives you attack damage, it gives you CDR, or magic resist, not CDR. But on top of that, after cleansing something, you get bonus tenacity. So if you get stunned again, you're gonna be okay. So this item is very interesting. It gives you 100 AP only, and it has an extra effect. If you hit someone from far away using an ability, it reveals them, and you deal an extra 10% bonus damage to them for 6 seconds. Or if you immobilize them, which is the other condition, if you immobilize them, also you have true sight of them and you deal 10% more damage against them, which is a really weird item. I don't know who's going to build it. Archangel Staff, same thing. Lichbane, same thing. So this item gives you AP, health, and 30 ability haste. And it gives you like the old phage effect where if you hit someone with abilities, it gives you bonus movement speed, and that movement speed is extended depending on how much ability haste you have. This item is same thing. Gnasher's Tooth is basically the same thing. Rallies is the same thing. Rage Blade, as I said before, it builds from a new item which converts crit chance into on hit. So the more crit you have, the more on hit you have, but it converts it into on hit. It doesn't give you crit and on hit. It removes the crit and it gives you on hit. Now the Collector is a very interesting item. It gives you attack damage and lethality and crit strike, but it has an effect where you execute anyone that is below 5% HP. Basically Elder Buff, just kill them, they're dead. And you gain extra 25 gold per takedown if you kill someone. I don't know if it's takedown or is it kill. Basically like Triumph, you get extra money. Ghostblade is the same, PD is the same, Deadman's is the same. Essence Reaver is a little bit different. Instead, it's built from Sheen and it has like a Sheen effect that gives you mana back. So you trigger Sheen and you get mana back, and then that's how it recycles the mana. Edge of Night is the same. Spear Visage. I'm really sad about Spear Visage because it is now 100 gold more expensive. It gives you 40 MR instead of 55, and the passive, instead of giving you 30% increase healing, it gives you 25% increase healing, but an extra 15% increase shielding, which I don't think it's worth it. Overall, it's a worse off item. Manamune is the same thing. GA is the same thing. This is a new item, very interesting. It gives you it makes you deal 3 times more damage to champions with shields. Very interesting item. Umbral Glaive, same thing. Randuin's is a little bit different. Instead of giving you a flat 20% less damage from crits, it now is built into the active. So if you activate the area effect, if you hit someone with it, they have 10% less attack damage and they deal 20% less crit damage. So you have to hit someone with it for it to have that effect. Storm Razor is basically the same thing. Rapid Fire, same thing. Abyssal Mask is a little bit different. It no longer gives you mana, and it no longer has an aura around it. Instead, now it reduces their magic resist if you immobilize them. So it's got like the Sunfire effect where if you immobilize them, something happens, it reduces their magic resist. So if you're Maokai, you W them, it's going to reduce their magic resist. Frozen Heart has been unchanged. Thornmail, a little bit less expensive. The stats kind of suck a lot, but it's mostly unchanged. So the next 2 items are both built from Executioner's Calling. This item is more of a, gives you like HP and a little bit more tanky vibes to it. It extends the Executioner's Calling passive so that if they're below 50% HP, it's now a 60% Grievous Wound, not a 40%. And this one has very interesting, it's the crit version of the Executioner's Calling. It's for ADCs, and now instead of it gives you 40% Grievous Wounds like normal, but if you hit someone for 3 times consecutively, it now increases it to 60%. Morello is like the old Morello. It's built off of the Oblivion Orb, the new one that gives you Grievous Wounds, but it no longer gives you Armor Pen, and it's got the same effect as this item where if they're below 50% HP, the Grievous Wounds is extended to 60% instead of 40%. Sonya's Hourglass is basically the same thing, except the stats are not as good. Void Staff is basically the same item, and this is new Banshees. It's basically the same item. Now Zeke's is a little bit different. Now instead of using your ultimate, your ADC gets bonus damage. Now you immobilize someone, and your ADC gets bonus damage. Mikhail is basically the same item, except it now gives you a heal on the cleanse. Knight's Vow is basically the same item, except you no longer get healed by your ADC. Your ADC still takes reduced damage and is converted and is redirected towards you, but you no longer heal when the ADC deals damage to them. On top of that, if you are below 50% HP, you move faster towards them. Ardent Sensor is basically the same item. Redemption is basically the same item. There is a new item here, which is the upgraded version of the item that I talked about earlier. Let's scroll up. This item right here, the one that allows you to store more wards. Once you upgraded it to the 2nd tier, you can now upgrade it to the 3rd tier with money, which is this item right here. And if you upgrade it for 1200 gold, now instead of giving 25 ability haste, it gives you 40 ability haste, and it gives you 10% movement speed. So it's a support item that allows you to store more control wards. This is a new support item. It's exactly the same as Ardent Sensor, but instead of increasing their attack speed and on hit, it now Ardent Sensor gives you on hit now, but instead it gives you movement speed instead of attack speed and on hit. This item is also built from Oblivion Orb, so it gives that Grievous Wound effect, but it's not as, the stats are really bad. It gives you like a bit of ability power, a bit of ability haste and mana regen. It's like the support version. It's cheaper and it's not as good. And this is Medjai's. It's basically the same. It doesn't give you mana. It's got the same. But the good thing about Medjai's is that it's a very cheap legendary item. It is under the legendary item filter. So if you have a mythic item, then you get the extra bonuses from the passive. Now onto the mythic items. Liandry's, basically it's the same thing, except it doesn't increase the max health damage if they're immobilized. It gives you the thing, basically the same thing from the get-go. And now it gives you mana, and it doesn't give you HP. So very interesting item. Luden's Echo, it's basically the same thing, except it gives you movement speed when it procs. Now this item is called Everfrost. It gives you AP, HP, mana, and ability haste. It has it all, and on top of that, it has a really good passive. It's like an Annie W in a cone in front of you, and the people at the center get rooted. So any champion can go Aftershock now if they build this item. It slows everyone in a cone, but the people in the center get rooted for 1.5 seconds. These are the 3 ADC items that I'm sure you guys all know. The Gale Force allows you to dash a short distance. The I don't know, Giant Killers, a Beast Killer, I don't remember, deals extra true damage on your third auto. And this one gives you the Lifeline effect, which gives you a shield PD and extra lifesteal. Triforce is a little bit different. It actually is not the most expensive item in the shop anymore, so don't expect it to be a huge power spike anymore. Everybody has a power spike. He still gives you a Sheen effect, and it still gives you the Phage effect, except it doesn't build from Phage because Phage is a different item now. It gives you that movement speed, and yeah, basically it doesn't give you as much. It doesn't give you mana, it doesn't give you as much CDR, so it's honestly not as strong as an item as it used to be. This item is called Gore Drinker. It gives you HP, attack damage, and ability haste, and it's got the Tiamat active. Like we go up here, we look at this item called Kama. It's got the Tiamat active, not the passive, only the active. Basically, the active is you hit in a circle in front of you, and you heal based on how many enemy champions you hit and how low you are. So basically, it's a Renekton empowered Q. You heal a ton based on how many people are around you, and I think it only works on champion, the heal. So this is called Stride Breaker. It's also built from that Kama item that I talked about in the last item. And instead of cleaving in front of you, you dash and you cleave in front of you, and you slow everyone around it. It gives you health, attack speed, attack damage, and ability haste, so it's got all of it. So I'm gonna come back to some of these items later. Let's just skip this item and go to the Sunfire, the new Sunfire Cape. Basically, it's the same thing. Obviously, it's a lot more expensive, and it still has the same effect. It's built from Bammy Cinder, and now for every time you deal damage around them with Bammy Cinder, the Cinder effect is increased. And at max stacks, your autos do bonus damage in a cleave effect. So that's what it does. Protobell is basically the same item. So this item is called Axamuk's Folly. It gives you it's built from that item that we talked about earlier, which looks like Catalyst, but it gives you Spell Vamp, and it's got like the Haunting Geist effect, where the longer you're in combat, the more damage you deal, and at max stacks, that bonus damage is converted to true damage. Now let's skip these two items because I don't really know what they are. Righteous Glory is now a mythic item. It's got the same effect, it's just the Righteous Glory. Dustblade has a new effect. It's basically the same thing. It gives you attack damage, lethality, and now ability haste. But it's got an interesting effect where you deal bonus damage to people on a cooldown, and if you kill them, or are you within 3 seconds of killing them or on a takedown, you go invisible for 1.5 seconds and the damage is now refreshed. So for example, your Talon, you jump onto someone, you deal with your Q, you deal the bonus damage and it kills them. You're now invisible for 1.5 seconds and that bonus damage is now refreshed. Let's go to Shurelya's. It's basically the same as the old Shurelya. It's a support item, but instead of only giving movement speed to everyone around you, everyone who is affected by Shurelya's next 3 autos or abilities deal bonus damage. Locket is like the Locket that we have right now, except it has a passive and an active. The active is the same, it shields everyone around you, but the passive, everyone around you gains extra armor and magic resist, and that increases for how many legendary items you have. Now there's a couple more items that I haven't explained because I don't really know what they look like. For example, the Frostfire Gauntlet is kind of like the Iceborne Gauntlet, except it's built from Bambi Cinder as well. These are its stats. It creates a slow field and it slows enemies, but instead of increasing in size based on armor, it increases on effectiveness based on HP. A new item, Eclipse. This item is crazy. It's a lethality item. It gives you attack damage, lethality, and spell vamp. Hitting a champion with 2 separate attacks or abilities within 1.5 seconds deals bonus max health damage, grants you 30% movement speed, and a big ass shield. And it's not as good for ranged champions, is on a 6-second cooldown for melee and 12 for range. So imagine your Talon, you jump onto someone, you Q auto. That's all you have to do. You trigger the damage, the movement speed, the shield. 6 seconds later, you can do the same thing. Kind of broken. Prowler's Glove, Prowler's Claw is also a lethality item. It's got a little bit more stats than the other items, but you dash through a target, like Kiana basically, and you reduce their armor by 30% for 3 seconds to give you room to do the bursting, and it allows your other legendary items to get extra lethality, so it's assassination. Let's talk about Night Harvester. Gives you AP and health and ability haste. Damaging enemy champions, deals bonus damage and grants you movement speed. And it's on a 60-second cooldown per champion. So let's imagine you're singed and you have your passive. You run around people, you gain movement speed. After you hit them, it deals a little burst of damage and you get even more movement speed to run around people. So that's what it's probably going to be used for. Divine Devourer. It's an anti-type tank item, but it kind of feels like a tank item. It gives you attack damage, health, and ability haste after using an attack. So basically a sheen effect based on your max health. So it deals more damage based on more health that you have. So it's a bruiser item. And when you hit someone with it, you heal for 60% of the damage dealt. So you get a heal effect out of it too. So it's basically a sheen that deals your own max health and you heal for 60%. And the last mythic item is Moonstone Renewer. A very interesting item. It gives you health, ability haste, and mana regeneration item. It's for supports. It's not good on stats. It's very cheap, 2,600. And when you affect champions with attacks or abilities, basically it stacks. It's a conqueror for supports, and you're consistently healing nearby allies. So it's a conqueror, but instead of giving you something, it heals allies for HP, and that increases based on how long you were in combat for. So anyways guys, thank you guys so much for watching. That was as fast as I could do it, basically. There was so many items to talk about, so many changes, so many new items. I don't really want to go over the items that were removed, rest in peace. But yeah, those were the new items to BBE. I'm gonna release some gameplay soon. I'm gonna try some new builds, so stick around. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and like the video if you really enjoyed. That means a lot to me. Thanks, and peace out.